So we went to Rome last month. I wanted to see my parents since we have been apart since the beginning of the Russian war against Ukraine. They fled to Poland and us to France, where Leslie family is. It's been more than 6 months and finally we saw each other again. My parents have never been to Rome, so we decided to have our meeting point there. It was lovely and heartwarming. We walked a lot, talked a lot, and of course ate a lot. It was not my first visit to Rome, but 8 years later and with the new company it felt all new and exciting. Rome was full of colors, tourists, and painting ideas. Every other minute I thought, this would be a perfect painting, and this, and that. Oh my god, look at this, the colors would look so stunning in watercolor painting. So I might as well start working on a Rome collection soon. I don't know. I'm currently working on the Mont Blanc landscape collection, and well, it might take a while. Even though Roman architecture is so thrilling and interesting to paint, the thing that was constantly stealing my attention was colors. I would look at those brown and orange walls with their paint peeling from old age and think a mix of burnt sienna with some granulating blue and maybe a drop of gamboge yellow for the vibrancy. And so we strolled the streets, in rain, in sunlight, basically daydreaming. I was collecting ideas for the art, Leslie for the future, and while my Roman peeled walls are waiting their turn, the thing I could not wait to share with you and consequently turn it into a quick tutorial is another iconic Roman landmark. Not the Colosseum, not the Trevi Fountain, not even the pizza, even though the pizza was freakishly good. The thing is, gelato. Absolutely best Italian ice cream you can find on earth. Pistachio, sour, drop of lemon, and sweet touch of mango. For this tutorial, I swapped the flavors so that the color palette is a little bit more interesting. I also made it beginner friendly so that if you're just starting out with watercolor, you can easily follow this. I will share 3 crucial tips on how to paint a realistic and yummy looking gelato. But first, let's quickly look into the color palette. The first scoop will be pink, like a cherry flavor. I'm using Madder Red. It is a cool red pigment. If you compare it to cadmium red, you will see the difference in temperature. The second scoop will be purple, like some wild berries. But I will create the color myself by mixing the same Madder Red with ultramarine blue, which will give me purple. The final scoop will be sap green, a nice light green color, but I'm mixing it up with a drop of yellow. It will warm up green a little bit. For the cone, I'm using burnt sienna. To work on the shadows, I simply add a little bit of blue to calm the color down and make it slightly darker. After I prepare my sketch, I like to make sure that the pencil line is not visible too much, for which I am using a kneadable eraser. It gently removes the pencil line without damaging the paper. So, tip number 1. To achieve this nice and soft texture of Italian ice cream, you want to use the wet on wet technique. It means that you will first paint the area of a scoop with clean water and only then add paint, which will ensure your first smooth watercolor layer. And I will work one by one, so I'm not going to apply clean water on all 3 scoops, just on the first one. While the water is sinking in into the paper, I'll mix my violet color. Carefully following the shape of my first scoop, I'm covering this whole area with my mix. Also, in some places, I'm kind of leaning towards pink a bit more because I mix my color by myself. I can kind of separate those colors by controlling the amount of each paint in my brush. Now, to avoid sharp edges, like in a true gelato, we need to add shadows while your first layer is still wet. The colors will blend in naturally, and you won't need to worry about the connecting lines. As I mixed my purple color by myself, it allowed me to control the balance of each color, pink and blue. So I can intensify the pink if I want to and add a darker purple shade on the left side. Tip number 2, see this scoop as a simple form, something like a sphere, a ball. The difference between a shape and a form is simple but important. A shape is two-dimensional, like a circle, a triangle, a square, and the form is three-dimensional, like a sphere, a cone, a cube. In other words, forms have volumes and shapes are flat, and we do not want to paint a flat ice cream. Every three-dimensional object has a volume that can be shown on paper using light and shadow balance. And so with the semi-wet brush, I lift some of the pigment on the right side of the scoop because it is where the light is coming from, so to intensify this highlight even more. And the shadow on the right will create a perfect contrast to make the scoop look three-dimensional. Tip number 3, understand color mixing rules. Use a color wheel to create harmonious color mixes. It is fairly simple once you understand the system. I won't be diving into all the possibilities of using a color wheel in this video and only explain how you can make colors darker, but if you're interested in details, leave comments below and maybe the next video will be about color mixing rules. So a color wheel is basically a system that explains the behavior and properties of colors. It also helps to organize and predict color reactions and interactions. To achieve calm and dark shades, you want to use complementary colors. It is two colors that sit exactly in front of each other, and by mixing them we can lower the saturation, the richness of the color, and just make it duller and darker. So in our case, to achieve a darker shade of purple, which has a dominating pink color, we need to find the opposite color, which is somewhere in a green-yellow side. If our color was violet or containing more of the blue, the opposite color would also move towards yellows. So here, painting a pistachio scoop, I used a light warm green color, sap green, mixed with yellow. The opposite of such a mix would be a purple color leaning towards pink, which we are lucky to already have as we have been using it for the previous scoop. So I just took some of it to add into my green. For pure pink, the opposite color would be a nice and vibrant green, such as emerald green. And this is what I used for the final third ice cream scoop in the middle. And so, using the same approach, I created 3 gelato scoops with wet on wet technique, working on the shadows and highlights, and mixing my shadows with the help of the color wheel. And it won't be a great surprise for you to find out that the cone will be painted following exactly the same algorithm. First, we paint with the pure water, only covering the area of the cone. Be careful not to touch the ice cream. Then we lay down the first light layer of brown. I use burnt sienna. Brown is a tricky color and doesn't show up on the color wheel. It is not a pure color or hue and is mostly considered a exaggerated version of orange, which means a complementary color to it is blue. That's what I added to create a darker tone for the cone. With the same darker shade, I left marks with my brush which look like little squares to create the waffle texture of the cone. Here it's important to follow the form, which is a cone, no pun intended, and have your little squares go down the cone and almost disappear in the bottom. And here is a bonus tip, highlights. To add a yummy feel to this painting, you want some highlights. Using a lifting technique, I carefully picked up the paint in a thin line using a semi-wet, flat brush. It is crucial to make sure your lines are thin and delicate and your brush doesn't leak water, otherwise it will ruin the painting at the very last stage. Well, spoiler alert, even if you do, there is a fix to it, but that's a topic for another video. So here we go, a yummy gelato straight from Rome. If you like painting food art, check out my real-time tutorial where I teach to paint cannelé, a unique French dessert.